The frozen winds of Zerion 7 cut through the thin atmosphere like invisible knives. Marcus Chen pulled his thermal jacket tighter as he guided his mining rover across the endless white dunes. He had been prospecting for rare minerals on this desolate moon for 3 months now, and the isolation was starting to wear on him. His scanner beeped softly, indicating traces of platinum deposits nearby. Marcus adjusted his course, steering the rover toward a cluster of ice formations that jutted from the desert floor like frozen fingers. As he approached, something caught his eye, a splash of color against the monotonous white landscape. Marcus stopped the rover and grabbed his binoculars. Through the magnified lenses, he could make out what appeared to be fabric, deep purple and gold, fluttering in the wind. His heart rate quickened. In all his time on Zerion 7, he had never encountered anything artificial beyond his own equipment. He drove closer, parking the rover behind a natural ice barrier to shield it from the worst of the wind. Grabbing his emergency kit and plasma rifle, Marcus trudged through the knee-deep snow toward the anomaly. As he drew nearer, the fabric resolved into elaborate robes, and within them— "Holy hell," Marcus whispered, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. A figure lay motionless in the snow, half buried by the recent storm. The being was clearly not human. Her skin had a faint blue tint, and delicate scales covered her exposed arms. Her face was angular and elegant, with high cheekbones and closed eyes that seemed too large for a human skull. Most striking were the intricate golden tattoos that spiraled across her visible skin, pulsing faintly with an inner light. Marcus knelt beside her, his medical training kicking in automatically. He pressed 2 fingers against her neck, searching for a pulse. The anatomy was different, but he found a rhythm, weak and thready, but present. She was alive, barely. Her robes were torn in several places, revealing deep gashes that had frozen in the cold. Dark blue blood had crystallized around the wounds. Marcus recognized the marks, plasma burns and blade cuts. This wasn't an accident. Someone had tried to kill her. He scanned the horizon nervously. Whoever had done this might still be nearby, but the recent storm had erased any tracks. The woman, for she was clearly female, despite the alien features, needed immediate medical attention. The ethical choice was clear, even if it meant taking an enormous risk. Marcus carefully lifted her, surprised by how light she felt despite her height. She must have been over 7 feet tall, but her bones seemed hollow like a bird's. He carried her back to the rover, laying her gently in the heated cargo compartment. Back at his mining outpost, Marcus worked frantically to save her life. He had basic medical supplies and a decent understanding of human physiology, but treating an alien was entirely different. Her blood was the wrong color, her organs were in unfamiliar places, and he had no idea what medications might help or harm her. He did what he could, cleaning and sealing the wounds with synthetic skin patches, administering universal antibiotics, and keeping her warm. The golden tattoos on her skin seemed to respond to his touch, glowing brighter when he applied the healing gel. It was as if her body was trying to help him help her. For 2 days, Marcus maintained a constant vigil. He barely slept, checking her vitals every hour and adjusting the makeshift life support he had rigged from mining equipment. On the 3rd morning, her eyes finally fluttered open. They were magnificent, deep violet with flecks of gold that seemed to swirl like galaxies. She looked at Marcus with confusion, then fear, trying to sit up despite her injuries. "Easy, easy," Marcus said softly, holding up his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." She spoke, her voice melodious despite its weakness, but the language was completely foreign. Marcus activated his universal translator, a standard piece of equipment for miners who might encounter other species. After a moment of calibration, her words became clear. Where am I? Who are you?" "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a human miner. I found you in the desert 3 days ago. You were badly hurt." Her eyes widened, and she looked down at her bandaged wounds. "You saved me? But you're human." The way she said it suggested surprise, maybe even disbelief. Marcus frowned. "Was I supposed to leave you to die?" "Most would have," she whispered, "especially if they knew who I am." "And who are you?" She hesitated, then spoke with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "I am Lirelei, third queen of the Zerathi Empire, wife to King Thaxor the Unyielding." Marcus nearly dropped the water bottle he was holding. The Zerathi Empire controlled most of this sector of space. They were known for their advanced technology, their strict caste system, and their general disdain for lesser species like humans. Finding their queen half dead on a backwater mining moon was like discovering royalty in a garbage dump. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, unsure of the proper protocol. "What happened to you? How did you end up here?" Lyralei's expression darkened. "Betrayal. My husband's other wives conspired against me. They accused me of treason, of consorting with enemies of the Empire. Thaxor believed them." Her voice broke slightly. "He ordered my execution, but the ones he trusted to carry it out decided to make sport of it first. They brought me here to this frozen wasteland, beat me, and left me to die slowly." "That's horrible," Marcus said, genuine sympathy in his voice. "No one deserves that." She looked at him strangely. "You speak as if my fate matters to you. But I am Zerathi, and you are human. Your kind are considered barely above animals in our empire. Why would you risk yourself for me?" Marcus shrugged. "Because it was the right thing to do. I don't care if you're Zerathi, human, or anything else. You needed help, and I could provide it. That's all that matters." Lyrelei stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "I have lived for 200 years, she said finally. "I have seen countless beings of many species. Never have I encountered such simple kindness, especially not from a race we consider primitive." "Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places," Marcus suggested. "Or maybe your empire's assessment of humanity is wrong." Over the following days, as Lyrelei recovered, they talked more. Marcus learned about Zerathi culture, their rigid hierarchy, their advanced technology, their belief in genetic superiority. Lirelei, in turn, learned about humanity, their diversity, their resilience, their capacity for both great cruelty and great compassion. "Your species confuses me," Lirelei admitted one evening as they shared a meal of reconstituted proteins and synthetic vegetables. "You have no natural advantages, no claws, no enhanced senses, no psychic abilities. Yet you survive and even thrive. How?" "We adapt," Marcus explained. "We might not be the strongest or the fastest, but we're stubborn. We don't give up, and we work together mostly. When one human falls, others help them up. It's how we've always been." "Not in the Empire," Lyrelei said sadly. "There, when one falls, others step on them to climb higher. I should know. I played that game for decades before. Before I made the mistake of showing mercy to a colony that failed to meet production quotas. I argued for leniency instead of extermination. That was all the ammunition my rivals needed to paint me as weak, as a traitor to Zerathi values." Marcus reached across the small table and gently touched her hand. Her skin was cool but soft, the scales barely noticeable. "Showing mercy isn't weakness, it's strength. It takes more courage to help than to harm." Lyrelei looked at their touching hands with wonder. In Zerathi culture, such casual contact was forbidden between castes, let alone between species. Yet this human, this supposedly inferior being, offered comfort without expectation or demand. As the days passed, Lirelei grew stronger. The golden tattoos on her skin, which she explained were bioengineered status markers, began to glow more brightly. But with her physical recovery came a difficult reality. She couldn't stay hidden forever. "They will come looking," she said one morning, gazing out at the frozen wasteland. "Not for me. They believe I'm dead. But this moon has resources the Empire wants. Eventually, they'll send ships." "Then we need to get you somewhere safe," Marcus said. "There are human colonies in the outer systems, places beyond Zarathi jurisdiction. You could start a new life." "A queen of the Zarathi living among humans?" Lyrali almost laughed. "Your people would never accept me. I represent everything they fear and hate about my species." "You'd be surprised," Marcus said. "Humans have a long history of taking in refugees, even former enemies. We judge individuals, not species. Well, most of us do." Lyrali turned to face him fully. In the weeks since her rescue, she had come to see this human in a new light. Where once she would have seen a primitive barely worth noticing, she now saw strength, intelligence, and above all, kindness. It challenged everything she had been taught. "Why are you doing this, Marcus? Really? You've risked your life, used your supplies, given up your solitude. What do you gain?" Marcus considered the question. "I guess I gain knowing I did the right thing, that I helped someone who needed it. That's enough for me. No reward, no payment, no favor owed? Nope. Just the satisfaction of knowing you're alive and safe." Lyrali shook her head in amazement. "For 2 centuries, I believed Zarathi superiority was absolute. We were stronger, smarter, more advanced. But we never developed what you have. This capacity for selfless action. Perhaps that's why we fear you." "Fear us? The mighty Zarathi Empire fears humanity?" "Of course. Oh, not militarily. We could crush your fleets easily. But ideologically? Your very existence challenges our worldview. If a lesser species can show more nobility than our greatest lords, what does that say about our claimed superiority?" Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the harsh landscape that had nearly claimed her life. Maybe that's the problem with thinking in terms of superior and inferior. Every species has strengths and weaknesses. What matters is how we choose to use them. A proximity alarm suddenly blared through the outpost. Marcus rushed to the scanner, his face paling as he read the display. 3 ships had just entered the system, Zarathi patrol vessels. "They're here," he said grimly. "We've got maybe 2 hours before they reach the moon." Lyrali stood, her injuries still causing her to wince. "You must hide me. If they find me alive—" "They won't," Marcus said firmly. He was already moving, gathering supplies, and checking his equipment. "We're getting you out of here. My rover can reach the old mining station on the far side of the moon. There's an emergency shuttle there, outdated, but it'll get you to the transit station on Proxima Colony. From there, you can book passage to human space." "And you?" "I'll stay here. Act normal when they arrive." "Just another human miner trying to make a living." Lyrali grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "They'll interrogate you. Zarathi methods are thorough." "I'm tougher than I look," Marcus said with a grim smile. "Besides, I can't exactly claim I found the queen of the Zarathi Empire half dead and nursed her back to health. They'd think I was insane." As they prepared to leave, Lyrali noticed Marcus packing extra supplies, food, medicine, even some of his personal belongings. "You're giving me too much. You'll need these things." "I can get more. You can't. Take them." They loaded the rover in tense silence. Time was running short, and they both knew that capture meant death, for both of them. As Marcus started the engine, Lyrali placed a hand on his shoulder. "Marcus Chen," she said formally, "you have shown me something I didn't believe existed. True honor without expectation of reward. Whatever happens, know that you have changed one Zarathi's view of humanity forever." "Just promise me something," Marcus said as he drove them into the white wasteland. "When you're safe, when you've built your new life, Remember that there's good in every species. Don't let the actions of a few define the many." "I promise," Lorelei said softly. "And Marcus, thank you, not as a queen to a subject, but as one being to another. Simply, thank you." The rover disappeared into the swirling snow, racing against time toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the Zarathi ships grew closer, their scanners already probing the moon's surface. And in that moment, a queen who had once embodied imperial arrogance and a human who exemplified his species' greatest strengths forged a bond that would ripple across the galaxy in ways neither could imagine. The abandoned mining station appeared through the blizzard like a ghost from the past. Its corroded metal structures groaned under the weight of accumulated ice, and several sections had collapsed entirely. Marcus guided the rover through a maze of frozen equipment and debris, finally parking in what had once been a loading bay. "This place has been dead for over a decade," Marcus explained as they climbed out, the cold immediately biting through their protective gear. "Mining company went bankrupt, left everything behind. But the emergency shuttle should still be functional. They're designed to last." Lorelei moved carefully, her injuries still limiting her mobility. The journey had taken its toll, and Marcus noticed fresh spots of blue blood on her bandages. Still, she maintained the regal bearing that seemed ingrained in her very bones. They found the shuttle in a reinforced hangar, covered in frost but intact. Marcus began the startup sequence, his fingers flying over the control panel with practiced efficiency. Systems came online one by one: life support, engines, navigation. Everything seemed functional if outdated. "It'll take 20 minutes to fully warm up," Marcus said, checking the fuel reserves. "Just enough to reach Proxima Colony if we're careful." A loud crack echoed through the hangar. Both of them froze, listening intently. Another crack, followed by the unmistakable sound of ice being melted by high-energy beams. The Zarathi had found them faster than expected. "They're scanning the area," Lorelei whispered, her face pale. "Standard search pattern. They'll find us within minutes." Marcus's mind raced. The shuttle needed more time, and they couldn't fight off a Zarathi patrol. He made a decision that surprised even him. "Keep the startup going," he told Lorelei, handing her his access codes. "I'll buy you time." "What are you talking about?" "I'm going out there. I'll tell them I'm just a miner checking on old equipment. While they're dealing with me, you finish the launch sequence and get out of here." Lorelei stared at him in disbelief. "They'll know you're lying. They'll torture you for information." "Maybe, but you'll be safe." Marcus checked his plasma rifle, though he knew it would be useless against Zarathi armor. "That's what matters." "No." Lorelei's voice carried a note of command that reminded Marcus she had once ruled billions. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me." "You don't have a choice," Marcus said gently. "This is what humans do. We protect others, even when it costs us everything. Especially then." Before Lorelei could protest further, Marcus was gone, sealing the hangar door behind him. She watched through a grimy window as he walked toward the approaching Zarathi soldiers, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. The soldiers were exactly as she remembered: tall, imposing figures in elaborate armor that hummed with energy. Their leader, a commander judging by his crest, towered over Marcus by at least 2 feet. Lorelei couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read the body language: suspicion, aggression, threat. Marcus stood his ground, gesturing casually toward the mining station as if he had every right to be there. The commander struck him across the face, sending him sprawling into the snow. Still, Marcus got up, continued talking, continued buying her time. The shuttle's systems showed 15 minutes until launch capability. Lorelei's hands trembled as she worked through the checklist. Every instinct screamed at her to help Marcus, but she knew that revealing herself would doom them both. All she could do was watch as the Zarathi soldiers began what appeared to be an field interrogation. They were not gentle. Energy prods sparked against Marcus's body, making him convulse with pain. Still, he didn't point toward the hangar, didn't betray her location. Even when they brought out a neural scanner, a device that could extract thoughts directly from a subject's mind, he resisted. "Stubborn human," Lyra Lay whispered, tears she didn't know she could cry for another species streaming down her face. Beautiful, stubborn, impossible human. 10 minutes to launch. The neural scanner was taking longer than usual to calibrate. Human brains, it seemed, weren't quite compatible with Zarathi technology. Marcus used this to his advantage, pretending to cooperate while actually making the process more difficult. Then something unexpected happened. As one soldier adjusted the scanner, Marcus moved with surprising speed. He grabbed the soldier's sidearm and fired, not at the Zarathi, but at a massive ice formation hanging precariously above them. The plasma bolt shattered the ice's anchor point, sending tons of frozen water crashing down. The Zarathi scattered, their armor protecting them from the worst of the impact. But Marcus used the chaos to run, leading them away from the hangar. He was buying her more time, even as energy blasts scorched the air around him. 5 minutes to launch. Lyra Lay's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power from non-essential systems to speed up the process. The shuttle's engines began to whine, a sound that would surely attract attention soon. She had to leave. It was what Marcus wanted, what he was suffering for at that very moment. But as her hand hovered over the launch button, Lyra Lay found herself frozen by a realization that shook her to her core. For 2 centuries, she had lived by Zarathi principles: strength, superiority, survival at any cost. She had watched rivals fall and felt nothing. She had ordered executions and slept soundly. Yet this human, this supposedly inferior being, was showing more courage and nobility than any Zarathi lord she had ever known. He was proving that true strength came not from power or position, but from the choices one made when facing impossible odds. "I'm sorry, Marcus," she whispered, "but I'm not Zarathi anymore." Instead of launching, Lyra Lay powered down the shuttle and grabbed the emergency medical kit. She had made her choice, one that went against everything she had been taught, everything she had believed. She would not leave Marcus behind. Moving as quickly as her injuries allowed, she exited the hangar through a maintenance tunnel. The storm had intensified, providing cover as she circled around to where the Zarathi had Marcus cornered against a collapsed drilling platform. He was on his knees, blood, red human blood, staining the snow around him. The neural scanner had finally been calibrated, and the commander was personally overseeing its use. In moments, they would break through his defenses and learn everything. Lyra Lay stepped out of the storm like an apparition. The soldiers saw her first, their weapons dropping in shock. The commander turned slowly, his 4 eyes widening in disbelief. "My queen?" he gasped. "But you're dead. We saw the body." "Clearly you were mistaken," Lyra Lay said, allowing her full royal presence to fill her voice. "Release the human immediately." We cannot, Majesty. King Thaxor's orders were explicit. You are to be executed as a traitor." "I see." Lyra Lay walked forward, ignoring the weapons now pointed at her. "Tell me, Commander, what makes one a traitor? Is it showing mercy to the weak? Is it questioning unjust orders, or is it abandoning those who have shown you loyalty?" She knelt beside Marcus, who was barely conscious. His eyes flickered open, confusion and dismay warring in their depths. "Told you to go," he whispered. "I know. But you forgot something important about humans, Marcus. You're not the only species capable of doing the right thing." She looked up at the commander. "This man saved my life. He showed me kindness when your soldiers left me to die. He represents the best of his species, while those who betrayed me represent the worst of ours." Your Majesty, the commander said carefully. My orders. Your orders were based on lies, Lyrale interrupted. I never betrayed the Empire. I simply suggested that strength could be found in mercy, that other species might have qualities worth respecting. For this, my fellow queens conspired against me, and my husband chose politics over truth. She stood, helping Marcus to his feet. So I give you a choice, Commander. Follow your orders and kill us both, adding the murder of a true queen to your crimes, or question why you were sent to kill someone whose only crime was compassion. The soldiers shifted nervously. Killing enemies was one thing, but executing their own queen, even a disgraced one, was another. The bioengineered loyalty built into their genes warred with their direct orders. The human must have corrupted you, the commander said, though his conviction seemed to be wavering. Used some form of mind control. Marcus laughed weakly, leaning on Lyrale for support. Yeah, that's me. Master manipulator. Could barely figure out her biology enough to bandage her wounds, but sure. I totally brainwashed the queen of the Zarathi Empire. He saved me, Lyrale said simply. Without expectation of reward, without knowing who I was, without caring that I was an alien. He risked everything simply because it was right. When did any of us last do the same? The commander's weapon lowered slightly. Behind his helmet, she could see the confusion in his eyes. Everything about this situation challenged his worldview, just as Marcus had challenged hers. If we return without completing our mission, he began. You'll be executed, Lyrale finished. Yes, I know how Thaxor handles failure, so perhaps it's time to question whether blind obedience to a corrupt system is worth your lives. A younger soldier spoke up, his voice trembling. What are you suggesting, Majesty? I'm suggesting that there's more to strength than domination. This human showed me that. He could have left me to die, taken whatever valuables I carried, and no one would have known. Instead, he spent weeks nursing me back to health, sharing his supplies, protecting me, not because he had to, but because he chose to. She felt Marcus squeeze her hand weakly, and she squeezed back. The Empire teaches us that such behavior is weakness. But look at him. Beaten, tortured, yet still standing, still protecting me. Is that weakness? Or is it a strength we've been too proud to recognize? The commander removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face and ancient eyes. I've served the Empire for 3 centuries, he said slowly. I've followed every order, never questioning, never doubting. But lately, he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. Lately, I've wondered if our way is the only way, if our strength is worth the price we pay for it. It's not, Lyrale said gently. I know that now. True strength comes from lifting others up, not crushing them down. From showing mercy, not demanding submission. From choosing compassion over cruelty, even when it costs us. The soldiers looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, the commander nodded. The queen is dead, he said formally. We found no trace of her. The human miner was questioned and released. He knows nothing of value. Relief flooded through Lyrale. Commander, go, he said quietly. Take your human and go. Find whatever truth you're searching for. But know that this mercy comes with a price. We can never return to the Empire. We're as dead as you now. Then live, Marcus said, his voice stronger now. There's a big galaxy out there full of possibilities. Maybe it's time the Zarathi learned what else is possible besides conquest and control. The commander studied him for a long moment. Perhaps you're right, human. Perhaps we've been wrong about many things. He turned to his soldiers. We'll report the mission complete and disappear. There are frontier worlds where questions aren't asked, where we can start over. As the Zarathi patrol prepared to leave, the young soldier who had spoken earlier approached. Majesty, he said hesitantly, Is it true? Can we really be more than what the Empire made us? Lyreley smiled, the expression still feeling foreign on her face. I'm learning that we can be whatever we choose to be. The hard part is making that choice. After the Zarathi departed, Lyreley helped Marcus back to the shuttle. His injuries were serious but not fatal, nothing that proper medical care couldn't fix. As she settled him into the co-pilot's seat, he caught her hand. You came back, he said wonderingly. You could have been safe, but you came back. I learned from the best, she replied, beginning the launch sequence. A stubborn human who taught me that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. So what now? Where do we go? Lyreley considered as the shuttle lifted off, leaving the frozen moon behind. First, we get you medical attention. Then, I don't know. I've never been free before, never had choices that were truly mine. It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Welcome to the human experience, Marcus said with a pained grin. We never know what we're doing either. We just muddle through and hope for the best. And yet you thrive. Because we help each other. Because we believe tomorrow can be better than today. Because we're too stubborn to give up, even when logic says we should. The shuttle broke through the moon's thin atmosphere, stars spreading before them like diamonds on velvet. Somewhere among those stars was the Zarathi Empire, with all its power and prejudice. But there were also human colonies, alien civilizations, and countless worlds where two unlikely companions could build something new. Marcus, Lyreley said as she plotted a course for Proxima Colony, I've been thinking, your species has a saying, actions speak louder than words. Today, your actions spoke volumes about humanity's potential. But I wonder, could we speak even louder together? What do you mean? I mean that perhaps my survival, our story, could serve a greater purpose. There are others like that, Commander. Zarathi who question, who doubt, who wonder if there's another way. And there are humans who only see my people as conquerors and oppressors. Maybe we could show both sides that things can be different. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. You want to go public? Tell everyone what happened here? Eventually, perhaps. When you're healed, when I'm stronger, when we understand better what we want to say. But yes, I think our story could matter. A human who saved a Zarathi queen, and a queen who chose compassion over conquest. It could change things. It could also get us both killed. There are plenty on both sides who won't want that message spread. True, Lyreley acknowledged. But you taught me something important, Marcus Chen. Sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks. Sometimes changing the galaxy starts with changing one heart at a time. Marcus reached over and took her hand. Their different biologies no longer a barrier, but a bridge. Then I guess we'd better get started, one heart at a time. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a frozen moon where everything had changed. In the swirling chaos between stars, a human and a Zarathi flew toward an uncertain future, carrying with them a simple truth that had the power to reshape civilizations. Every being, regardless of species, possessed the capacity for both greatness and goodness. The choice of which to embrace was what truly defined them. Behind them, somewhere in the void, a Zarathi patrol ship changed course, its crew embarking on their own journey of discovery. The ripples had already begun to spread. The medical center on Proxima Colony was a chaotic blend of species and technologies. Humans worked alongside Altarians, whose 6 arms made them excellent surgeons. Robotic assistants glided between beds, and the air hummed with the sound of various life support systems calibrated for different biologies. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus, despite the shared surname, nearly dropped her datapad when she saw her next patients. A human miner, badly beaten but stable, accompanied by what appeared to be a Zarathi female. The doctor had seen many things in her 20 years of frontier medicine, but this was a first. "I need you to help him," Lyralai said without preamble. "He has internal injuries, possible organ damage, and trauma from neural scanning." Sarah's medical instincts overrode her shock. "Get him on the bed. Nurse, prep for full body scan." She glanced at Lyralai, noting the poorly healed wounds visible beneath her robes. "You need treatment too." "After him," Lyralai insisted. As the medical team worked on Marcus, Sarah couldn't help but study their Zarathi companion. She moved with an unconscious grace that spoke of high breeding and those golden tattoos. Sarah had read about them in xenobiology texts. They marked their bearer as Zarathi royalty. "You're taking quite a risk being here," Sarah said quietly as she administered cellular regeneration therapy to Marcus. "The colony has no love for the Zarathi Empire." "I'm aware," Lyralai replied, "but Marcus trusted human compassion would extend even to former enemies. I choose to believe he's right." Over the next several hours, as Marcus's condition stabilized, word spread through the colony. A Zarathi was in the medical center, not as a conqueror or diplomat, but as a patient's companion. By the time Marcus regained full consciousness, a small crowd had gathered outside. "This could get ugly," Sarah warned. "Many people here lost family to Zarathi raids. They won't care about the circumstances." Marcus struggled to sit up, wincing at the movement. "Then we need to control the narrative. Doc, is there somewhere we can address them? Tell our story properly?" "You're in no condition for public speaking," Sarah protested. "I've come this far," Marcus said firmly. "I'm not stopping now." An hour later, in the colony's main assembly hall, Marcus and Lyralai faced a crowd of several hundred humans and allied species. The tension was palpable. Anger, curiosity, fear, and suspicion filled the room like a physical presence. Marcus spoke first, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. He told them about finding Lyralai, about choosing to help despite the risks, about the weeks they spent together that shattered his preconceptions. He spoke of common ground found in unlikely places, of strength defined not by power, but by choice. Then Lyralai stepped forward. The crowd tensed, some reaching reflexively for weapons they didn't carry. She stood tall, regal despite her simple clothes, and began to speak. "I was Queen Lyralai of the Zarathi Empire," she said, her translator rendering her words clearly. "I was raised to believe in our superiority, trained to see other species as resources to be exploited or obstacles to be removed. For 2 centuries, I never questioned this worldview." She paused, meeting the hostile gazes without flinching. "Then I showed mercy to a failing colony and was branded a traitor. My own kind left me to die on a frozen moon, and a human, a member of a species I had dismissed as primitive, saved my life." A woman in the crowd shouted out, "Why should we care? Your people destroyed my homeworld." "You're right," Lyralai said simply. "My people have caused immeasurable suffering. I cannot undo that. I can only tell you that Marcus Chen showed me another way. He taught me that true strength lies not in domination, but in compassion, not in taking, but in giving." She gestured to Marcus. "This man could have left me to die. Instead, he risked everything to save someone who represented everything humans have learned to fear. When Zarathi soldiers came, he faced torture rather than betray me. And when I had the chance to escape, I chose to stay and help him, because he had shown me what it truly means to be strong." An elderly man stood up slowly. "I lost my son to a Zarathi raid 10 years ago. Nothing you say can bring him back." "No," Lyralai agreed quietly. "I cannot resurrect the dead or undo the past, but I can work to ensure such tragedies don't continue. There are others among my people who question our ways, who wonder if there might be a different path. Your mercy here today could be the seed that grows into change." The crowd murmured, divided. Some faces showed skepticism, others thoughtful consideration. Then a child, no more than 8 years old, tugged free from her mother's hand and walked forward. The assembly held its breath as she approached the stage. "Are you really a queen?" the girl asked, staring up at Lorelei with curious eyes. Lorelei knelt, bringing herself to the child's level. "I was. Now I'm just someone trying to learn a better way to live. My teacher says we should judge people by what they do, not where they come from," the child said solemnly. "Did you really come back to save him when you could have run away?" "I did." The girl nodded, apparently satisfied. "Then I think you're good." Sometimes the wisdom of children cuts through adult complexities with surgical precision. The tension in the room shifted, not disappearing but transforming into something more thoughtful. An alien voice spoke up, a Trellan merchant with mottled green skin. "The human speaks truth about choices defining us. My people were enslaved by the Zarathi for generations, yet here stands one of their queens, asking not for worship, but for the chance to change. Perhaps we should consider what that means." The debate continued for hours. Some colonists remained unconvinced, their pain too deep for easy forgiveness. But others began to see possibilities. If a Zarathi queen could change, if a human miner could see past species prejudice, what else might be possible? Marcus and Lorelei found temporary shelter with Dr. Ah Chen, who had become intrigued by their story. Over the following weeks, as they recovered, word of their tale spread through the colony's communication networks, then beyond, carried by traders and travelers to other human worlds. The first real test came when a group of anti-Zarathi extremists attempted to attack their shelter. But before they could act, other colonists intervened. Not because they had forgotten Zarathi crimes, but because they refused to become what they fought against. "You don't fight monsters by becoming one," said Jacob Winters, a former soldier who had lost his arm in the Zarathi conflicts. "If she's genuinely trying to change, then killing her makes us no better than them." Lorelei was moved by the protection offered by those who had every reason to hate her. It reinforced what Marcus had been trying to teach her, that humans' greatest strength lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their capacity to rise above base instincts. Meanwhile, ripples spread through Zarathi space as well. The commander who had spared them sent encrypted messages to others who harbored doubts about the Empire's path. The story of a queen who chose mercy and a human who embodied it began to circulate in whispers and secret gatherings. 3 months after their arrival on Proxima, an unexpected visitor requested a meeting. Ambassador Threnix, a senior Zarathi diplomat, arrived with a small escort. The colony was on edge, but he came under a flag of parley. "Your Majesty," Threnix said, using Liralei's former title with careful respect, "your survival has created complications. The king maintains you died as decreed, but rumors persist. Some view you as a martyr for reform, others as a traitor who proves the danger of softness." "And which do you believe?" Lorelei asked. Threnix was silent for a long moment. "I believe the Empire is dying, strangled by its own rigidity. We expand through fear, rule through force, and wonder why the galaxy unites against us. Your approach suggests an alternative." "It's not my approach," Lorelei said, glancing at Marcus. "I learned it from humans. They survive not despite their compassion, but because of it. They build alliances where we make vassals. They inspire loyalty where we compel obedience. The king will never accept such ideas." "Then perhaps it's time for new leadership," Lorelei said carefully. "Not through assassination or coup. That would only perpetuate the cycle. But through example. Show the Empire another way is possible." Threnix studied them both. "You would need allies. powerful ones, and you would need to demonstrate that this human way can produce results. Over the following days, intense negotiations took place. A plan emerged, ambitious, dangerous, but with the potential to reshape interstellar relations. Lyreley would openly challenge the narrative of her death, presenting herself as an advocate for reform. Not seeking the throne, but seeking change. Marcus, despite his lack of formal diplomatic training, would serve as living proof of humanity's true nature. Together they would travel to neutral worlds, building coalitions among species tired of Zarathi oppression and human resentment alike. "It's insane," Marcus said one evening as they prepared for their departure. A minor and a deposed queen trying to change the galaxy. "Perhaps," Lyreley agreed, "but isn't that how all great changes begin? With ordinary people doing extraordinary things?" Their first major test came at the Galactic Trade Summit on Nexus Station. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to negotiate treaties and resolve disputes. When Lyreley and Marcus entered the assembly hall, conversations stopped dead. "I am Lyreley, former Third Queen of the Zarathi Empire," she announced. "I stand before you not as royalty, but as someone who has learned that there are alternatives to conquest and submission. I'm here to propose a new paradigm." The Zarathi delegation was in uproar, demanding her arrest. The human representatives were equally shocked, uncertain how to respond to this unprecedented situation. But Lyreley pressed on with Marcus beside her. She spoke of her experience, of Marcus's selflessness, of the colonists who protected her despite their grievances. She challenged the assembly to look beyond old patterns and consider what could be achieved through cooperation rather than domination. When she finished, the Zarathi ambassador rose. "These are the ravings of a traitor corrupted by human weakness. She does not speak for the Empire." "No," Lyreley agreed. "I speak for those who believe the Empire can be better. Just as humans can be better than their worst impulses, so can we. The question is whether we have the courage to try." A young Zarathi in the delegation suddenly stood. "I've served on the frontier for 50 years. I've seen our methods breed nothing but hatred and resistance. If there's another way—" He hesitated, then stepped forward. "I would hear it." One by one, others began to speak. Not just Zarathi questioning their ways, but humans admitting their own prejudices, other species sharing their experiences. The summit, intended for trade negotiations, became an unprecedented forum for interspecies dialogue. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, an ordinary man whose simple act of kindness had catalyzed extraordinary change. When asked to speak, he said simply, "I'm nothing special. Any human would have done the same. That's what I want you to understand. This isn't about me or even Lyreley. It's about recognizing that every species has the capacity for both cruelty and kindness. The future depends on which we choose to nurture." The summit ended without dramatic declarations or immediate transformation, but agreements were made to continue dialogue, to explore alternatives to the current paradigm. Small steps, but significant ones. As their ship departed Nexus Station, Lyreley stood beside Marcus on the observation deck, watching the stars stretch into lines as they entered hyperspace. "Do you think it will work?" she asked. "Can we really change things?" Marcus took her hand, their different biologies no longer even registering as strange. "I don't know. But I do know that you changed, and that changed me, and we changed those colonists and those diplomats. Change spreads like ripples on water. Sometimes that's enough. The Empire won't accept this easily. There will be those who see reform as weakness, who will fight to maintain the old ways. And there will be those who see it as evolution, who will fight for something better. Change is never easy, Lyreley, but it's always possible." They received word a week later. King Thaxor had officially acknowledged Liralay's survival, but branded her a radical whose ideas threatened Zorathi's stability. Yet he also announced a series of minor reforms: improved treatment for vassal species, diplomatic channels for grievance resolution, restrictions on punitive raids. He's trying to control the narrative, Liralay observed, make small changes to prevent larger ones. But he is changing, Marcus pointed out. That's the crack in the dam. Once change begins, it's hard to stop. Their movement grew slowly but steadily. The story of the human who saved his enemy and the queen who learned compassion resonated across species lines. On frontier worlds, Zorathi soldiers reported increasing instances of non-compliance, officers choosing de-escalation over destruction, showing mercy where doctrine demanded harshness. Among humans, too, perspectives shifted. Organizations dedicated to war with the Zorathi found their recruitment dropping as young people questioned whether hatred was the only response to historical injustice. Veterans like Jacob Winters formed groups promoting reconciliation, arguing that ending the cycle of violence honored the fallen more than perpetuating it. Not everyone accepted the changes. Extremists on both sides denounced the movement as naive, dangerous, even treacherous. Attempts were made on both Marcus and Liralay's lives. But each attack only seemed to strengthen their message, that choosing violence over dialogue only perpetuated the problems they sought to solve. 1 year after that first meeting in the frozen wastes of Zerion 7, Marcus and Liralay stood before the newly formed Interspecies Reconciliation Council. Representatives from 37 civilizations had gathered to formalize what had begun as an impossible dream. "We stand at a crossroads," Liralay addressed the assembly. "We can continue the patterns of the past, domination and resistance, oppression and revenge. Or we can choose a different path, not forgetting the past but not being imprisoned by it either." Marcus added, "Humans have a saying, be the change you want to see in the world. Liralay and I tried to live that. We're asking you to do the same. Not through grand gestures, but through daily choices. Choose understanding over assumption. Choose mercy over vengeance. Choose hope over fear." The Council's first act was to establish neutral zones where different species could interact freely, sharing knowledge and culture without fear of exploitation. The second was to create exchange programs, allowing individuals to live among other species and learn their ways. The Zorathi Empire officially condemned these actions, but their response was notably restrained. Internal reports suggested the reforms were causing significant debate within Zorathi society. A generation was growing up questioning why they should fear or hate other species, when cooperation seemed to yield better results. Among humans, the change was equally profound. Children who grew up hearing Liralay's story saw Zorathi not as monsters, but as people capable of change. Fear gave way to curiosity, hatred to cautious optimism. It wasn't perfect. There were setbacks, violence, moments when the old ways seemed easier than the new. But the movement persevered, held together by the simple truth Marcus had demonstrated on that frozen moon. That choosing compassion over cruelty, even when it cost everything, was what elevated all sentient beings above their base instincts. 5 years later, when King Thaxor was succeeded by his daughter, her first act was to formally recognize the Reconciliation Council and pledge Zorathi participation. The empire didn't transform overnight, but the age of unchecked expansion and brutal suppression was ending. Marcus, now serving as humanity's first ambassador to the Zorathi, often reflected on how a simple act of kindness had reshaped the galaxy. He had saved one life, and in doing so had saved countless others from the cycle of violence that had defined interstellar relations for centuries. Liralay, who had taken the role of chief mediator for the Council, never forgot the human who had shown her another way to be strong. Their partnership, both professional and personal, became a symbol of what was possible when beings looked beyond their differences to find common ground. On the 10th anniversary of their first meeting, they returned to Xerion 7. The mining moon had been transformed into a memorial and education center where beings of all species could learn about the power of individual choice to create systemic change. Standing in the spot where Marcus had found her dying in the snow, Lyralay spoke to the gathered crowd of students, human, Zerathi, and dozens of other species learning together. "This is where I discovered that everything I believed about strength was wrong," she said. "Where a human showed me that true power comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the courage to heal. Not from forcing others to kneel, but from helping them stand." Marcus added, "We're not here to celebrate us. We're here to celebrate the idea that every one of you has the power to change the galaxy. Not through war or conquest, but through the choices you make every day. Choose kindness. Choose understanding. Choose to see the potential for good in others, even when, especially when, it's hard." As the students dispersed, mixing freely regardless of species, Marcus and Lyralay stood together in the place where their journey began. The frozen wasteland had become a garden, life flourishing where once there had been only death. "Did you ever imagine it would lead to this?" Lyralay asked. "Honestly, I was just trying to keep you alive," Marcus admitted. "I never imagined one act of kindness could ripple so far." "That's because you underestimate yourselves," Lyralay said. "Humans always have. You see your lack of natural advantages as weakness, but it's your greatest strength. Without claws or armor or psychic powers, you had to develop something more powerful. The ability to connect, to empathize, to inspire. That's what conquered the Zerathi Empire. Not your fleets or weapons, but your simple refusal to let someone die alone in the snow." They walked through the garden, where plants from 100 worlds grew side by side, their differences creating a beauty no single species could achieve alone. It was, Marcus thought, a perfect metaphor for what they had built together. The galaxy still faced challenges. Old prejudices died hard, and there were those on all sides who preferred the clarity of conflict to the complexity of cooperation. But something fundamental had shifted. Where once there had been only fear and hatred, now there was hope. And it had all begun with a human who chose to save his enemy, and an alien queen who chose to save him in return. Their story, told and retold across the stars, reminded every being that change was possible, that the future wasn't determined by the past, and that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe was simple compassion. In the end, that was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not their technology or military might, but their stubborn insistence that things could be better, and their willingness to risk everything to make it so. It was a gift that transformed not just the Zerathi Empire, but the very fabric of interstellar civilization. And in a garden on a once frozen moon, where two unlikely friends had changed the course of history, new students arrived daily to learn the most important lesson of all, that every being, regardless of species or station, possessed the power to choose compassion over cruelty, understanding over ignorance, and hope over fear. The choice, as it had always been, was theirs to make.